Joining us again for another session for this batch. So as Vaishnav mentioned, today we'll be talking about opioid availability. I think rather much awaited session from the beginning. People ask a lot of questions regarding the availability of opioids in various places. So today we have Dr. Rajagopal handling the session. And today we have the state facilitation team from Palim India joining the session along with Dr. Rajagopal. So the state facilitation team will be introduced after the session. So they are the people who will be uh, helping you in going through this process or starting a center later on. So yeah, so we'll introduce them once the session is over. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sridevi. Thank you, Vaishnav. I am quite conscious that the subject that we have before us is very different from what we have been talking about so far. Usually we talk about patients and symptoms and medical science. And today we are going to talk more about the nitty-gritties of management of applications, stocking and dispensing of opioids, documentation, etc. Not something that the majority of you usually do, except for a few people who may have been in management. But before I share a screen, Vaishnav, before I share my screen, please be ready to share that PPT with the polls. Okay. Did you get it? You're ready with?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, everything that you learned in palliative care and much of what you will learn in future will be of very little value if you do not yet, Vaishnav, I'll ask for it. Will be of very little value if you do not get access to morphine. And that's because at least 3/4 of your patients with cancer will need morphine. And also, if you think, okay, let us try to manage with step 2 opioids and psychosocial support, yes, but it's going to be very hard. I know because I did it for 2 years before I could eventually, in the 1990s, lay my hands on morphine. We went on managing with whatever was available in step 2 in those days. Even with the addition of buprenorphine, it was so totally inadequate. The thing is, your psychosocial evaluation also is impossible, almost impossible, if your patient is screaming in pain. If the mind space is fully occupied with pain, you cannot do anything else practically. So we have to get morphine. Let me ask you, Vaishnav, please. Let me the first poll. Let me ask you a question. Please look at this poll, and will you please give your answer? It is possible that 1/4 of people do not know whether they have morphine or not. 45 participants are there. I mean, some are from our team, I know. But still, I'd expect about 40 answers. Okay, thank you. Thank you to the 33 people. And when several people do not respond, I have this serious doubt. What exactly is happening to the other 7? Okay, but what we do know now is that 70% of you do not have access to morphine. I hope that if we run the same poll 3 months from now, I hope 90% will say yes, or 100% optimistic. I'm being optimistic. Today, our state facilitation team, led by Shalini, is here with us. Shalini, before I start on the rest of the stuff, will you stop the poll, Vaishnav?
Okay, sir.
Okay. Shalini, will you please speak up and introduce your colleagues in the state facilitation team? We are also mentioning who is covering which area, region of the country.
I'm Shalini. I am working with a whole team of state facilitation team assigned to each region, one person. It's a privilege to be here and talking to all of you. I would first like to introduce Mr. Rajendra Singh from North, who handles all the northern states, 12 northern states. Rajendra ji, can you introduce yourself?
But before Rajendra comes on, Shalini.
Yes, sir.
Who are you?
Okay, I'm so sorry. Team, I heads the state facilitation division here in Pallium, India. Our primary objective of
No. What I meant was, I just wanted to. What usually happens is people start calling you Dr. Shalini, and when you say you are not a doctor, people start wondering, then what are you doing here? So,
Yes.
friends, let me tell you, this matters a lot. When we talk about opioid access, remember that we are doing a work of privileged area, medicine, but for the patient to get benefit, we need to interact with the pharmacist, with the hospital management, and as far as the patient's well-being is concerned, they are very important. Shalini came into all this possibly because of your own personal experiences in the family. You left management. You had nothing to do with medicine. And look what you are doing now. Crazy girl. Okay. I just wanted to make that point that you are not a medical person, but you ended up doing one of the most worthwhile things. Imagine, Shalini, 10 years from now, not only Shalini, Rajendra, Ron, everybody, Sunanda, 10 years from now, if we look back on the burden of pain and its relief in the country, you people, the non-medical people, would have contributed such a lot to the cause. You will be the cause for the pain relief, for the well-being of people. And we doctors need to understand that and respect that. We are used to occupying thrones in hospitals. And sometimes we forget to value the contribution by the non-medical people. So Shalini, Rajendra, Ron, Sunanda, anybody else?
Vishnu, sir.
Vishnu, okay. All of you, let us start by acknowledging the importance of the work that you do. Between you, what you do, may be so much more than the good that each of us individual doctors are able to do for patients. Sorry, Shalini, I will stop interrupting now. Rajendra was about to introduce himself.
Yeah, Rajendra ji, please go ahead, introduce yourself and your states, which all states you work for.
सभी को मेरा नमस्कार। मैं राजेंद्र दत्त बिजवान, रीजनल कोऑर्डिनेटर नॉर्थ इंडिया के लिए। मैं नॉर्थ इंडिया के 12 स्टेट में कोऑर्डिनेशन का काम कर रहा हूं। हमारे गवर्नमेंट एनएचएम सेक्टर से और नॉन गवर्नमेंट प्राइवेट सेक्टर से दोनों तरफ से स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं, जिनको हम कोऑर्डिनेट करते हैं, प्रमोट करते हैं, मोटिवेट करते हैं न्यू पैलिएटिव केयर सेंटर के लिए, ट्रेनिंग एजुकेशन के लिए। और हम लोगों का जो भी बीच पुल का काम करते हैं कहीं गवर्नमेंट और प्राइवेट स्टेक होल्डर के बीच में, आरएमआई प्रोसेस वगैरह में, तो इस रोल को करने के लिए मैं उत्तराखंड, हिमाचल प्रदेश, जम्मू कश्मीर, लद्दाख, पंजाब, हरियाणा, उत्तर प्रदेश, राजस्थान, बिहार और झारखंड एरिया के लिए मैं कार्यरत हूँ। तो टीम के जो नॉर्थ इंडिया के मेंबर्स यहाँ पर उपस्थित हैं, उनको मेरा बहुत बहुत नमस्कार। और किसी भी तरह का सहयोग के लिए हमें जरूर आप अपने साथ शामिल करें, ताकि हम मिल करके पैलिएटिव केयर कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ा सकें। नमस्कार, धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Rajendra ji. So he's our North Regional Coordinator. We now move on to Sunanda. She looks after the central region, all the states in the central region. Sunanda, please introduce yourself.
Yes. Good afternoon, Namaskar. My name is Sunanda Samal, and I am looking after 10 states. I'll just name them: Maharashtra, Karnataka, MP, Chhattisgarh, Goa, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Gujarat, Dadra and Nagar Haveli. So anything, like any kind of support you need, because Rajendra ji has already explained, I don't want to repeat what we are doing actually. So you all can, get back to me, connect with me, and I'll be there to help. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunanda. We move on to our King of Northeast, Mr. Rantu Sangma.
No, I'm not the king. I'm the regional coordinator for the Northeast India. So Northeast, all the 8 states and West Bengal. So I don't know how many from those states have participated today. But yeah, anything from there, yeah, please reach out to me. I'll be very happy. And I'm based in Guwahati. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. We have our coordinator from South, Mr. Vishnu. He's based out of Palyam, India in Trivandrum only. So he's the person who coordinates from Trivandrum with a lot of information which our regional coordinators would need. Mr. Vishnu, please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vishnu. I am handling the south of India from mostly, because during the states of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, Lakshadweep and Andaman Islands, and the new joinee in Palyam, India, as our Honorable Chairman told, we are here to help you regarding the government people handling the paperwork, all those things. So happy to help you. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishnu. So that was our entire team, and we also have Ms. Meenu, who manages the state facilitation back-end work, helping us with all the documentation. Meenu is also here. Meenu, if you can say hello to everyone. I think probably she's not around. So just to close on this, sir, you have been very generous in talking about us and our role. But I would really want to address the doctors that, sir, you have so much to do with the patients, and you're doing such a noble job to heal them and take care of their pain and suffering. So we are your arms, additional arms to help you manage all the management work, so that you don't have to really worry about procurements and getting things around. You can focus on treating the patient, giving them care and love, and whatever is needed for the medical interventions. We will take care of, we will help you with all the procurement of morphine through the RMI process that we know. And we work with the government officials in your states also. So there, whatever information we have, we would like to share with you and support you in getting the required medicines. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, wonderful people. Shall we, Vaishnav, now that you have started sharing the screen, you might as well continue. Less of work for me. I can if you like, but I thought now that you have started. Anyway, you have to do the second poll also, Vaishnav. There's one more question that I want to ask everyone. Vaishnav?
Yes, it's ready.
Just so that I know this possibly Sridevi and Vaishnav know this already. I thought I would get the profile. There must be, I should have put in a column for others also. There could be somebody who is retired or is not working now. So that's okay. I get a fair idea. The vast majority are in the private side. I know that this would include both non-government organizations and corporate hospitals. And private hospital may be also your own. About 29% are from government hospitals. Okay, 4 dental surgeons and 1 non-clinical teacher. Okay, right, Vaishnav, thank you. Can you move on to the next slide? The first couple of slides are only to remind you. We talked about this on day 1, the introduction. That health is not only absence of disease or infirmity, but it's physical, social, and mental well-being, which is what we are trying to give in palliative care, true health care. Next, Vaishnav. Next. And I'll also remind you that we talked about this. India does not have a law which defines duty of care of a doctor, but a doctor's duty is defined by a statutory body of the government of India, that is ICMR. Their bioethics unit has come out with this document, which is available for free download. And it says that a doctor's duty is to mitigate suffering, to cure sometimes, relieve often, and to comfort always. There exists no exception to this principle. And we are in this business. If curative treatment is going on, we'll walk along with that, relieve often, and comfort always. And for this precisely, we need all our skills, but also the armamentarium, including analgesics. Next, please, Vaishnav. So this is something that the world talks about a lot. The principle of balance. Unfortunately, the lawmakers and the bureaucrats usually do not recognize this or acknowledge this, both in international treaties and in our own law. This dual responsibility is accepted. We certainly need to prevent abuse of opioids, but we also need to make opioids available for those in pain. Both have to happen. One without the other is not acceptable. All of you who are going to use opioids, I would like to remind you of step 1. If you do not oversee how opioids are used in your hospital, you may have a very efficient pharmacist and pharmacy, but they may not be used to using oral morphine. They may be used to a small double-locked cupboard in which they keep injection morphine, injection patidine, etc. But and then comes oral morphine, thanks to your intervention, and a huge carton. The drugs, the controlled medicines cupboard will not be enough to hold it. So it will lie somewhere. And that's dangerous too. We have the responsibility to make sure that in the hospital, control of opioids are used with all precautions and proper documentation. Because, ladies and gentlemen, of the 61 participants here, remember, if there is a slip up in one place, if a whole carton of morphine gets stolen, or if 1,000 tablets get stolen and it comes out in the newspapers, remember, the direct consequence will be a huge pain burden in the country. Look, that oral morphine is not, 1,000 tablets is not going to damage the country. It's not that. As a matter of fact, oral morphine is not very addictive. The damage that it will do will be minimal, but the adverse publicity will destroy our cause. And then one of your relatives or I myself, when I need it for my pain relief, will suffer. At the same time, what we need to keep reminding the public, the bureaucrats, the lawmakers, and the managers, administrators is at the same time we also have this responsibility, because unfortunately there's no substitute for opioids. For 3/4 or at least for 2/3 of people with cancer pain, there is no other effective medicine to take its place. You will be offered so many things by the industry. And I have actually heard with these years, somebody right up top, I won't even name the person or name the designation, somebody in the highest, one of the highest positions in Ministry of Health of Government of India went on record to say, and that's a medical doctor, that why do you don't make too much of a noise about opioids? There are other things like Vovaran, which are helpful. So many people, even doctors, do not understand the intensity of pain and the fact that currently there is no substitute for opioids for 2/3 of all people with cancer pain. And that holds true also for many other kinds of pain, especially acute pains. And it's a sad state of affairs that in our country, in cardiac care units, intensive cardiac care units, where morphine can be a life-saving medicine, it is not available. People manage with much inferior medicines. Do you know what they give for somebody with a chest pain and myocardial infarction in the ICU in your hospital? If anybody, either you speak up or put it up on the chat box, what do you think happens in your hospital? The vast majority who do not have morphine. Do you know?
Anyone would like to respond to that? Please unmute yourself and.
Fentanyl, morphine. Dr. Megha, lucky you. You're in a hospital. Oh, Dr. Vaidyanathan. The congratulations, Dr. Mekha and Selva, Dr. Vaidyanathan. Pentazocine is a relatively weak opioid medicine. Step 2. In addition, it is also very unsuitable for this purpose because the cardiac action is to increase the heart rate and increase the blood pressure. When you give pentazocine, even in a non-hypertensive, BP goes up by about 10, pulse rate goes up by about 10 to 16. And in a hypertensive, it goes up even more. And you know, the one thing that can destroy the cardiac muscle is increase in the heart rate and blood pressure when the person has a myocardial ischemia. So unfortunately, this is the reality in our country because people do not have morphine. So many people use alternatives which are either inadequate and or also harmful. Even tramadol, which I am sure many hospitals must be using, not so much as pentazocine, but causes a marginal elevation of blood pressure. And it is not titrable. You cannot give more than a certain dose of tramadol or the patient will get convulsions. Whereas morphine or fentanyl is very good, of course, though quicker acting also, but short acting. This is the problem with fentanyl, that for that person with chest pain, unless you are giving an infusion, it means every 2 hours or 1.5 hours, the patient will have pain. Morphine also has the advantage that it causes a mild vasodilatation, reducing the afterload of the heart, which is why we very often say that morphine can be a life-saving medicine in myocardial infarction. But I veered from my basic topic in a way. I'm just highlighting the importance and the principle of balance. Does anybody have a question about the principle of balance? Vaishnav, move on. So we owe it. Hey, anybody wants to take a guess? How many people would be in moderate to severe cancer pain in our country? Thousands, tens of thousands. I wish we had put up a poll, Vaishnav. Now I'm getting addicted to polls. Tens of thousands, lakhs, millions. More than 1 million people are in moderate to severe cancer pain at any point of time. In the country, about two and a half million, 25 lakhs of people live with cancer. Of them, at least 10 lakhs, a million, would be in moderate to severe cancer pain, which necessitates opioids. So it is for all of them, and also to make sure that his children do not end up getting addicted, we'll ensure not only uninterrupted access to opioids, but also make it safe, assess barriers to safety and interruption, and take remedial measures, ensure proper documentation to make sure that it is safe enough, and advocate for access to pain relief. Advocate for access to pain relief. Every one of us needs to be an advocate for this person. Doctor, non-doctor, management, state facilitation officer, anybody. We all have a responsibility, moral responsibility, because now we understand. Most people do not understand, including the professors who taught you. And we will have the job of making sure that people understand this. Vaishnav? One of the major barriers to access to opioids in our country was this law, the NDPS Act, infamous NDPS Act, the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act of India. In the 1970s, USA called for this war on drugs. War on drugs was a failure. The war on drugs did not achieve its objective of controlling addiction, but it had an unfortunate negative fallout. It practically stopped access to opioids in many parts of the world. And India, in a knee-jerk reaction, brought out this draconian rule. Ms. Tripti Tandon, a lawyer from Lawyers Collective, who helps us with our access to opioids work, says it is one of the most draconian laws in the country. How many of you have heard about Shekhar Gupta? Shekhar Gupta, the journalist, very famous man, very respected. Recently, he gave a talk. Dr. Vaidyanathan has. Shalini or anybody, if you have not heard that talk, I'll be happy to share a link with you. Dr. Shekhar Gupta came out with this talk recently about the NDPS Act. And he says globally, India's NDPS Act is one of the most draconian acts in the history of law. Well, thankfully, some of the draconian measures were amended in 2014, thanks to 19 years of efforts by a lot of people in India. The law is still active, but some clauses were changed so that Dr. Vaidyanathan, you and everybody else in this group now can get essential opioid medicines fairly easily. The beginning may be a problem, and that's where Shalini, Ron, Rajendra, Sunanda, Vishnu, everybody comes in to work with you. Vaishnav? I'm sorry to put all this on in your plate, but I won't go into the details of the rules. But just remember this fact, that till 2014, there's a reason why I am saying this. Till 2014, to keep the essential opioid medicines, you needed 3 to 5 different licenses. Each state had its own rules. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand the difference between an act or law and rules. I'll repeat that later, but acts are created by the parliament. Rules are created by executive order from the government. Each state had its own rules. So in Kerala, in my state of Kerala, we needed a possession license. Also, I needed to get an import permit. That's what I used to do. Then the manufacturer, whether he be in Gujarat or Maharashtra, had to get an export permit. And then only we could get the morphine. In many states, including Tamil Nadu, we also needed a transport permit to take it from one state to another. And these licenses were given by multiple agencies, including the excise commissioner. See, a medical matter is dealt with by the excise department just as if it was something like spurious liquor. And all licenses had short validity licenses. I actually had that situation where patients who had their pain relieved then could not have pain relief. And one man actually threatened us that next week, if you haven't got the morphine, I am going to hang myself from that tree. And sometimes within that week it would come, but the interruptions were caused by the licensing. And we even had the experience where finally it came. By that time, my import permit had expired validity. They would not allow us to open it. I had to send it back, get fresh licenses. These were the horrible situation. But now that the law is amended, states cannot make their own rules for what the government calls essential narcotic drugs, or ENDs. All states have the same rule. States cannot make the rules. You don't need the parliament to make the rules, but the government of India, the officials in Department of Revenue, can create the rules. The new amendments also brought in this clause of recognized medical institutions, RMIs. Two short forms for you, not medical terms, but from the law. Essential narcotic drugs, recognized medical institutions. Recognized medical institutions approved by the state drug controller do not need any licenses. That doesn't mean that they can do whatever they want to. You still need to get that approval of the drugs controller. The drugs controller gives you just a one form, one order saying, okay, suppose Dr. Ayana Parthi through your institution has applied. Your institution gets an order. Okay, Dr. Ayana's, I'm sorry, I don't know what's your institution. Your institution is now a recognized medical institution. Bas khatam. You enclose a copy of that order and put in an order to the manufacturer and you get the morphine. The only additional requirement is you will have to keep the documentation for each dispensation and also submit an annual report to the state drugs controller. I'll stop there. All boring, mundane stuff. I'll take any questions there. And before I move on.
Are there any questions from any of you? Yes, Dr. Vaidyanathan.
Anji.
Sir, we can't hear you, sir.
Dr. Vaidyanathan, please unmute and speak.
Sorry, sir. Sir, we have all these things, sir, whatever like you're telling, transport permit, import, export. Suppose if we apply for RMI and if we get the RMI, can we add all these things to one under the RMI? Like we are doing that same thing, sir. Injection pethidine, so much fentanyl, morphine, everything. Can we club everything into one?
Dr. Vaidyanathan, I'm glad you asked the question. Very important question. Unfortunately, there's one catch. Only about pethidine. Whatever we use, morphine, fentanyl, methadone, all those things are included among ENDs. In the current rule, pethidine is not included. So, if you say that you will manage with morphine, fentanyl, you can, you see. Maybe there are a couple of indications where pethidine maybe have advantages, but except in those situations, if you just have this approval, you don't need to go back for renewal of any of these licenses. Dr. Vaidyanathan, where do you work?
Mysore, sir.
Which
private hospital?
Private hospital. Okay. Your hospital, Vishnu is going to help you. We are all going to be with you, of course, to put in the application and get the status of RMI. And once you have it, morphine, pethidine, no, morphine, methadone, fentanyl. These things you can just place an order.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Vaidyanathan, your smiles is a smile of relief. Oh my God. No, we don't need all those licenses.
It's true, sir.
Yeah, it is a relief. Dr. Naveen, did you have a question?
Sir, if I may just interject here for Mr. Vaidyanathan, Dr. Vaidyanathan, Karnataka has a complete RMI process already implemented. There are a lot of other institutes who have RMIs. We have an entire list. So the drug controller is well aware about all the processes. Just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you, Shalini. That brings us to another issue, which many of you may fail, which may need. Dr. Vaidyanathan mentioned that they are still going by the old process, which is actually illegal. From 2015, the new law should be, it was after 1 year of this amendment, the new law is in place. But many states, even now, have not started the process. They still go through the old process. So that is a problem that we will together overcome. Dr. Naveen, did you have a question or no? Anybody else? Dr. Vaidyanathan, I am glad you asked the question. I am feeling a bit energized. Otherwise, I was doing all the talking and feeling bored of hearing my own voice. Thank you, Dr. Vaidyanathan. Vaishnav? So as I said, I'll repeat that. The act is a law passed by the parliament or legislative assembly. In this case, it has to be a parliament. Rules are created by executive order by the government secretaries. There is a Department of Revenue. As I said, morphine, fentanyl, and methadone are included among essential narcotic drugs or ENDs. Any institution that is recognized medical institution, that's only the state drug controller, no other agency. You don't have to go anywhere else. If any drug control says, oh, go and get a certificate from the Director of Health Services, we must politely say, sorry, sir, that is no longer required according to the new law. That's never submit to that. That kind of thing will keep happening. Any question about this? Vaishnav? So according to this, the institution should have one doctor with training in pain management to be in charge of RMI. Training in pain management. What is the nature of the training required? That is not defined by the law or the rules, mercifully. That is the discretion of the drugs controller to decide whether the training that you have gone through is adequate. In Kerala, we got a specific order from the Kerala State Drug Controller saying last year, saying that online training is adequate. So at the end of the course, you will all get a certificate of training. I suppose, though, whoever completes the course through with the attendance and the evaluation, etc., you get a certificate. So that certificate qualifies you to be in charge of an RMI, provided you have an MBBS or BDS degree. Recently, there was a lot of talk. In some states, doctors in alternative medicine are allowed to practice modern medicine. But by the rules, they cannot prescribe, hold, stock, dispense, or prescribe essential narcotic drugs. ठीक है Vaishnav? There is an additional clause saying that government hospitals do not even need an RMI certificate. Some drug controllers still say, no, you must get a certificate. Maybe when it happens because they want to make sure that nothing happens without their knowledge. But government hospitals are deemed to be RMIs. No prior approval is necessary. But when they order any essential narcotic drugs, they must copy it to the drugs controller. And annual consumption data also to be provided to the drugs controller. We have this, like in Kerala, we don't fight on this matter. The drugs controller says, no, let everybody get an RMI certificate. Okay, we go along with that. But it's not difficult to get it in Kerala, Tamil Nadu. In between, for some time in Karnataka, it was difficult. Now I understand that it's easier. Yes, Vaishnav, next. That's the format that we use here. There is a form given in the rules. But here, just to explain what we do in this institution, every time we get a consignment of morphine, we write down the consignment number, etc., the company that we get it from, the date, etc. And every time we dispense it, we give the name of the patient's registration number with us, and the quantity dispensed. This is the only documentation that you need. But this is a documentation that has to be done. This documentation ensures that the total in stock is easily seen. And periodically, this beautiful signature is mine, because in our institution, I am the doctor in charge of the RMI. But usually one of my colleagues, Dr. Sunil or Dr. Amrita, periodically checks to make sure that the quantity that is in stock tallies with what it should be. If there is a discrepancy, we investigate it. And actually, long back in Calicut, it happened to me once. All of a sudden, 100 tablets had disappeared. We were all panicking. And we actually had to take away the person who was in charge of it from that duty. That person was not allowed to touch opioids till the problem would be sorted out. Eventually, found that 2 packets of 50 tablets each had slipped inside the cupboard between the cartons. And once that was found, it was such a relief. But that investigation is essential, because though I said oral morphine is not very addictive, remember, a desperate person who is already addicted will grab anything. So we have to be careful. Any question about this? But all of us will hold your hands, will help your pharmacist or nurse or whoever handles that, or you yourself, to see you through this process, to make sure that the system runs smoothly and efficiently. Any questions? Vaishnav? The process of application is like this. We will share with you the relevant forms. Vaishnav, you are going to send this presentation to everybody, right?
Yes, sir. We'll be sending all the materials and presentations.
Okay. So this link that you see here itself gives all the forms. That is the rules NDPS revised rules of 2015. The law in 2014, the rules in 2015. There is also a document on the website which is called the best practices, prepared by Dr. Nandini Vallath. That's an excellent document. I mean, it's not a long document. I would strongly encourage all of you to read it and write to us if you have any questions or doubts. Forms, this gives the forms that you need to submit an application for approval as an RMI, the form in which you have to place an order, the form in which you keep the stock, the form in which you send your annual consumption data, etc. And the to be approved as an RMI to start with, you have to apply in the appropriate form. It is not very difficult, fairly easy. The approval comes in. Actually, the approval, the drugs controller is obliged to give you a response within 2 months. That's your legal right. The drugs controller has to inform you, you have to give you the approval or show cause, why not? And remember, the reason has to be genuine. Only in 2019 this happened. In one state, problems went on happening. We won't name the state. The drug controller was very helpful. He understood. The deputy drug controller was very helpful. He understood. They all said, okay, we'll, as soon as applications come, we'll do it. But somewhere in the hierarchy, problems would be sprung. Finally, the hospital was given, not hospital, a palliative care center was given the response. Submit the floor plan of your institution. Give evidence of your NABH accreditation. So when confronted with this, we talked to the institution. We said, please do not do this. Please do not apply for NABH accreditation for this purpose. Please do not submit a floor plan. We need to resolve this. This is being recorded. Otherwise, I would have brought in the issue of corruption, but I will not. In common practice, somewhere in the hierarchy, that becomes a problem. And all these unreasonable questions come up. What we did was, okay, our institution is a WHO collaborating center. As its director, I wrote a letter to the drug controller in registered post. This is important. When you apply also, always submit applications by registered post so that you have evidence of submission. Keep the receipt with you. So I wrote to the drug controller and said, this violates the clauses of the NDPS rules. For this purpose, the whole purpose of the rules was to improve access to opioids safely. Asking for NABH accreditation or floor plan of a building violates the existing law of the land. Therefore, please expedite action on the application. Fortunately, we got the approval immediately, possibly because we had established that connection with the higher-ups. But if necessary, we are ready to fight it out. If there is an unfair rejection, we know what to do. We'll go to the High Court of the state. If our explanations are not successful. But from our side, we have to make sure that all the documentation is correct. No morphine prescription dispensation is left undocumented. Vaishnav, that was the last slide, wasn't it? Yes. Shalini, do you want to leave the presentation here or do you want to comment at this point of time? You are anybody from the state facilitation team?
So I was just wondering if you would want to show the form so that they have a feel what form exactly that they want to fill. I have it opened with me right now. If
Vaishnav, please stop sharing. Give a sharing rights to Shalini.
I'm sharing the document. This is the document that Sir is referring. One second, I'll just begin from the top. So it's a gusted document. You will see these are the state rules, a document which completely defined what every state is supposed to follow. This document is given in both English and Hindi. So the first part is entirely Hindi. I'll quickly move to the English part. Yeah. You'll see Ministry of Finance, Department of Revenue. I would suggest you have a quick read, not many pages, though a little long, but you have a quick read. It will clearly tell you up down here, there is possession, transport, import, interstate, export, interstate, sale, purchase, consumption, and use of essential narcotic drugs. It gives you entire list of the drugs and their quantity that can be possessed, procured. And further, it talks about here particularly special provisions related to recognized medical institutions. And this will give you the entire explanation. And in the end, it will give you the forms. The first form is for registered medical practitioner. That if as a yes,
Shalini,
sir.
Sorry to interrupt. Ladies and gentlemen, I did not talk about this at all so far. That was a deliberate omission. As not as an institution, but as a doctor, you are eligible to get a certificate for possessing a small quantity in terms of so many milligrams or grams. But I would not advise you to go through that route. There are two problems. One, all the responsibility is entirely on you as a person. Two, the quantity is too small. With what you will be allowed to carry as an RMP, registered medical practitioner, you may be able to treat only 1 or 2 patients. And if one patient is on a large dose of morphine, oral morphine, this may not be enough. So I would strongly urge you to forget about even the rules that Shalini described. Does give how you can get an approval as an RMP to hold morphine. But I recommend that you do not go through that route. You just go through RMI, Recognized Medical Institution. Sorry, Shalini.
No problem. Thank you, sir. That I think that I was thinking we'll address it during this time only. So this is the application 3F, application for issue renewal of certificate of recognition. Once you fill this form, and this is where our team can help you. If you have any doubts how to fill the form and what all data to put in there, our team can help you. After submitting this application, you will get this certificate of recognition. And as Dr. Raj mentioned, this certificate is required only for private organizations, private institutes, charitable, or all non-government institutes. For government, you do not need this certificate, but you need to maintain documents based on other forms that is there. So I'll just go back quickly. This is like details of the patient to whom essential narcotic drugs has been dispensed. So you will have to maintain the register that Dr. Raj showed has the details in this way only. And daily accounts of essential narcotic drugs. This is by the person who's responsible to keep it. Estimate of annual requirement of essential narcotic drugs that you'll have to send to the drug controller every year. Even as a deemed RMI institute, you will have to send this just to ensure and let him know that you are maintaining the records, and this is the estimate annual requirement. So do you want to add on something? That was it that I wanted to.
No, that's fine, Shalini. We'll answer any questions that people have. And to so many forms, that's a bit intimidating. But all that you really need on a regular basis is your annual submission of consumption data and the form of application. Once you get approval as an RMI, it's valid for 3 years. After 3 years, you apply for a renewal. The form for consumption, I mean, like every patient, you can keep one form like this, but what we do is one copy, we have the patient's case sheet, which includes the address. We keep it there and write in a register. That is quite acceptable.
So if anybody has any state-specific question, like in your state, how things are and how we can help, they're most welcome.
Sridevi, I have a operational question.
Yes,
Are
sir.
we having a case presentation today?
No, sir. No.
So then the rest of the time after the question answers will be for feedback?
No, sir. This is basically for questions on opioid availability.
Okay. Sorry, Shalini, back to your question. Does anybody have any question from any state, your own personal experiences, your doubts?
Sir, I'm from Mysore, as I mentioned earlier. I had read your draft document which you had submitted to state government. I don't know what is the current status now. In that, probably I had, if I remember, I had seen you mentioning, you along with your team members, like they need to have a certificate course from the IAPC, Indian Association of Palliative Care, CCEPC, to be recognized as the training to procure or to have your institution accredited as RMI. You've been repeatedly mentioning it is there in Parliament also that Kerala government approves online training. I'm not yet started the process, but what is the current status, sir, in Karnataka? Like, you need to just have a training?
You really do not know whether the Tamil Nadu drug controller approves RMI status. I think Dr. Linka Gowda would know. But we, Shalini, we need to find that out if there is a problem with that. So what I would recommend is, don't go and ask them, is online training enough? Just apply, keep it the certificate. Usually, Tamil Nadu, there's no problem at all. They always approve of most training programs. So similarly, just apply and then we'll see what is the outcome. We can share the Kerala rules for precedents, but unfortunately, that's in Malayalam. I don't know of an official English version. That will be something to find out.
Sir, I think this is Karnataka state that he's referring to.
No. What I thought, Shalini, was if we have the Kerala order, we could give it, saying that other states are doing it, etc. So, but
Sir, from the recent update that we received from Ministry of Revenue, they have confirmed that Karnataka has already issued RMI certificates to almost like 10-20 organizations already. And about the amount, like the duration of the training, I'm not too sure, yes, but whether they are taking online or not. But as long as the doctor is certified for a pain and palliative care training, you can apply and then you can wait for a revert, as Sir said.
But Dr. Vaidyanathan was asking, saying that IAPC course is approved.
Correct, sir.
IAPC course is an online course. So if that's approved, you have no problem. And then that's any online course will then it's likely to be approved. If not, we'll write to them and see what we can do.
So I just wanted to add on to that. That's what I've been hearing from a lot of doctors, that IAPC course for just 2-3 days for procurement, they might be able to explain, but to understand the exact formulation and titration of morphine, at least a minimum 10 days is required with a little hands-on. That's what a feedback that we have been hearing from doctors. So we would always recommend from our side a 10-day course, a foundation course in palliative care or pain relief before you really go for that kind of application. Thank you.
There is a question from Dr. Selva Kumar. OTC narcotic also need certificate or not?
Dr. Selva Kumar, OTC, over the counter. Actually, technically, no opioid is over the counter. But you know what happens in our country? You can buy antibiotics over the counter. People go and ask, hey, I have an infection here. What antibiotic should I have? And the pharmacist gives something. That's an illegal practice that goes on. So what you mean, Dr. Selvakumar, are step 2 opioids. By the way, the narcotic is an official word, bureaucratic word for medicine. That is not a nice word. That's not a descriptive word. An opioid will be a better word. So what do you possibly mean are the step 2 opioids? What are available in the country currently? One is tramadol. Tramadol was brought into under a schedule called Schedule X. Step 2, yes. Schedule X, so that your institution will have to get an order, or the pharmacist will have to keep a duplicate copy of the prescription with them. That's the only prescription. Schedule X is easily given. All that they need is then your pharmacist will have to keep a stock register, or people can buy it from the pharmacy. But sometimes this is a loose practice. Secondly, that's codeine. Codeine is not available in every state. In some states, drug controllers do not permit its sale in its independent form. So it's usually then available only as cough syrups in combination with another thing in many states. You don't need a certificate for that. Another one is dextropropoxyphene, which was suspended for many years. It was the least expensive step 2 opioid and recently brought back as a very expensive step 2 medicine. I don't think anybody has started using it yet. Again, no RMI certificate necessary. So for any step 2 opioid, you don't need an RMI certificate. Tramadol, tapentadol, no, you don't need. Dr. Selvakumar, which institution are you from?
Dr. Selva Kumar, you're there?
Oh, KG Hospital, Coimbatore. Okay. So you must be already having opioids with the, if not with an RMI, you must be having it with the old NDPS rules. Okay, so suppose you want to go through the, I hope you will, you go through this rule. The steps, let me recount. 1, you fill up the right forms. You may need some help. It asks for number of inpatients, number of outpatients, etc. Nobody bothers. Just put in the approximate number. It doesn't have to be accurate and precise. It will ask how much you want to stock. For any new institution, we usually say half a kilogram of oral morphine. I would strongly recommend that you also start thinking about methadone. 1/4 of your patients will not get adequate pain relief with oral morphine, may need a substitute, and the inexpensive, effective substitute is another step 3 opioid, that's methadone. We will be dealing with that more, and you will need a little more of training to use methadone than with morphine because the margin of safety is a bit narrower. But that's again what we are here for, always here to support you. So you apply for the RMI license. I repeat, keep a copy, start a new file only for this, apply by registered post with acknowledgement due, keep the receipt of the registration process in your file, and if you have doubts about any filling up any form, come to us. Within 2 months, you have a right to receive an order. If not, on the completion of the 2 months, you write another registered letter. Personally, I recommend that you do not go to the drugs controller's office asking for it. That starts the problems. Then they say, okay, this man, what does he want? Okay, come back next Wednesday, etc. Don't allow that. Just write in a registered post, and that usually fetches a response. If not, let us talk about it and let us see what we can together do about it. And once you get the RMI certificate, you just order the medicine. There are various manufacturers. There is one in Kerala who sells the cheapest morphine, significantly cheap. 10 milligrams costs only about 1 rupee 20 paise, whereas most competitive brands cost about 5 rupees for the same thing, 4 times as much. There is one in Tamil Nadu, that's Tablets India. There is one in Maharashtra. No, they stopped manufacturing. Sorry. Gujarat, West Coast, and many others. I don't remember all of them, but we'll help you with that. Place the proper order in the form given in that. Again, send by registered post with some enclosures, which our team will help you with. And when you get a consignment, you will have to fill up a form and send a copy of the consignment order received to the drugs controller also. Done. You keep your register and start dispensing morphine or methadone or fentanyl. Dr. Anita, which state are you from?
Kerala, sir.
Okay. Doctor, we have a peculiar situation in Kerala. Legally, you can just place the order. But the drugs controller likes you to have an RMI certificate. What he says is, we want the documentation. So if you place an order with a manufacturer in Kerala, which is the cheapest, they will say, get an order from the drugs controller. So I would recommend, we can work it out. We can talk more about it. But if what kind of hospital are you in, Dr. Anita?
I'm now working in FHC setup, sir. Kulathur.
Okay. So your hospital, your institution, hey, you don't need any of these things. Very easy in Kerala. The DHS central stores has morphine. Just get your hospital to send an indent. As simple as that. So this is something that has been done in Kerala. Our team had to spend a few years working at it. But the Directorate of Health Services, other states also must be having it, as an essential medicine list. And in Kerala, their stock includes oral morphine. And Dr. Anita, please keep corresponding with us. Let us make sure that you have access to it.
Okay.
And Dr. Anita, another question is only in tertiary centers or in district hospitals? Forget it. Any government hospital, including a primary health center. Doctor, if I am in a village in my old age and I need it, I shouldn't have to travel to the city center. I should have it where I am. That's a fundamental principle. So primary health centers, any government hospital can have it. Any small clinic can have it. Even if you do not have a clinic, you have only a home visit service. So long as you are a registered institution, then you can have it. That is another issue that comes in. Some people must be in private practice. Dr. Sindhu, are you in private practice or government sector? Please unmute.
I'm working at a palliative care center in Mysore, sir. It
You
is
have
a
no
RMI.
yeah. So you have no problem. Dr. Kamachi Selvam, where are you from?
We can't hear you, sir. Can you unmute?
I am from Railway Hospital, Perampur.
Okay. You also
Are
have
you
no
able to hear
problem.
me, sir?
Yes, you have no problem. It's easy. But
Able to hear
anybody
me now,
here
sir?
who
Are
is
you
in
able to hear me now?
we heard you that you are in
Okay,
a
thank you,
Perampur
sir.
Railway
Okay.
Hospital.
Thank you,
So
sir. Thank
you are again one person who would not have a problem with this. Very glad.
Yes, sir. We are having too
But
much.
any of you doctors who are in a small clinic, for example, remember there is no problem. You will have to apply for to be an RMI. You will need a safe room and a steel cupboard, not a glass cupboard that somebody can break open, to keep the morphine in or the medicines in. But the big or small, any institution can hold controlled medicines, essential narcotic drugs.
Any other questions? We have 10 more minutes. If you have any state specific questions, you can ask that also, or anything related to stocking and dispensing of morphine. Opioids, I mean, sorry.
Usually at this time, we do not have enough time. There
Yes.
are usually so many questions. I think people are a bit overwhelmed by all the rules and things. So while somebody is framing a question in the mind, let me ask you, what, apart from getting the approval, what other problems do you expect in the management of your patients with opioids? Let me tell you, potential problems. Your hospital superintendent says, what? No. We don't want to bring in all these dangerous new practices. We are okay. We are managing with tramadol. That's enough. That may happen. Please don't quarrel. We will have to do sustained work. We can help you. Say, Victor, you will have to think, how do we tackle this? Don't tell anybody. Once when I had a major problem with the head of the institution, long back, I waited till that person went on leave for 1 week and got the next person in charge to give me a favorable order. Sometimes you can't afford to break your heads. Dealing with the drugs controller is easier. If you have your own institution head objecting to it, you'll have to work gradually to change the attitudes. Because once you quarrel with that person, life may be very difficult for you. Other problems that I sometimes find in some places, the pharmacist objects. But let me also tell you one good strategy for all of you. Your hospital must be having hospital meetings, team meetings. Talk about palliative care at the meeting to improve awareness. All sorts of questions may come up. Get our help to answer questions if necessary. But always engage the nurses and the pharmacists. Get them together. Sometimes I find pharmacists the most responsive when you engage them in conversation. In our country, the pharmacists never seen outside. They are doing a thankless job. If you invite all the pharmacists together for a meeting, okay, whether they are 3 people or 15 people, get them together. Explain what we are planning to do. Explain the cause and seek their support. You will tell the truth that the pharmacists have an important role to play. I think that's usually a very successful and useful strategy. In the place where I started this early on, one of the major strengths that we had was that we were working outside an operation theater in a side room. We got all the theater attenders and technicians together for a meeting. Explain to all of them. My God, this is the first experience for them. Doctors engaging them in a discussion. There was so much of animosity. They were very, not animosity, animation. They were all very warm and enthusiastic. And they actually influenced the union also and got us a lot of support. So let us not underestimate that. There will also be, after all this, you will have another problem. You get the medicine. Dr. Leiji Paul and Dr. Blossom finally get hold of morphine. You prescribe it to a patient. The patient looks at the prescription and says, "What? Morphine? Am I dying?" There is one major problem of the wrong perceptions on the part of the public. Morphine is very often associated with end of life. So as soon as you mention morphine, the patients or families will be very, very upset. We cannot we don't want to hide the fact that we are using morphine. That is short-sighted. But it will need patient explanations. It will take time. They may not be able to accept it immediately. With time, they will come to accepting this.
Sir, I would just like to add to what you're saying. Through our experiences in different states, the barriers that we faced, sometimes first try to find out where the problem is. Is the problem with the drug controller that he does not know the rules or the rules have not been implemented, or the problem is at the institution's end? So sometimes the drug controllers are not very aware that this is what they have it in their hand and this is the power that they have. Sometimes they know it. They would want still a letter from some higher authority like a principal secretary, or just to reiterate that they have the power. Then at medical institutions, and most of the time the medical fraternity is not aware of this new process. So we have always done an awareness session in different institutes just to tell them how to go step by step. We have gone to meet the pharmacist to explain to them like these are the forms to fill. But in some of the medical institutes, we even felt that they are so used to their regular process. They have become so comfortable in their regular process that they don't want to change now. Like, even if the new process is so simple, but still just, that reluctance to change, that no, we have no problem getting the morphine. because our MD knows the drug controller or the excise person, they quickly approve and we are able to do it. But when we explain to them that you are still going to the drug controller every 3 months, every 6 months for the approvals, you don't have to do that. This is a simpler process. So slowly we are able to turn them around, and we are happy to support any of the doctors where in this group if they want us to come and just stand by your side and help you with the whole convincing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shalini. Very valid point.
Thank you so much. If there are no questions from your side, I think maybe we can wind up today's session. But you can always post your questions in the WhatsApp group, so we'll be able to share the contacts, and you'll be contacted by any of the members of the state facilitation team if you have any need, as mentioned. So thank you so much, sir, for being with us for today's session. Thank you all the members of state facilitation team to join us for today's session, and thank you all the participants for being with us, and we hope all of you will have access to opioids sometime soon. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Sri.